Hey pals, it's Sassy Kassie, and today we're talking princess power. Now, if anybody has ever watched the archives way back in the beginning of my videos, I did do a couple of videos, one video focusing on different princesses. I did Snow White, I think all the way up until Belle. I never finished doing all of the Disney princesses. And today I want to finish that because I still feel passionate about it, still to this day. I'm just not going to do even an individual video on all of them, though maybe eventually I will get back to that. So why do this? Because, I mean, they're Disney princesses, and there are plenty of videos out there talking about, the unrealistic expectations of not just Disney movies, but fairy tales, even TV shows in general, about this, that, or the other. That's fine and dandy. I get that. There's a lot of unrealistic things in movies, especially Disney movies, but I still think that there are things that we can look at that are good to take away from these movies and not just like the whole damsel in distress thing, because they're not all damsels in distress, first of all. I also did not start out feeling this passionate about it, but I remember getting into a very interesting conversation with several people about why they didn't like certain princesses because they felt they had nothing to offer as far as the life lessons or whatever it is that, we're learning. And a lot of Disney movies are all about different life lessons. A lot of kids shows and kids programs are about life lessons. And I disagreed. I think there's plenty to take away from each individual princess. Now, before I start this rant, because let's be honest, it's going to be a bit of a rant, I am going to notate that I'm going to stop at Merida. And there are several reasons for this. The main one being that I want to talk about the princesses that are actually in the Disney Princess Court. And yes, there is a Disney Princess Court. Disney Princess is like its own brand. And there are several princesses from the Disney movies that are included in the Disney Princess brand. But there are other characters that you might consider princesses or queens that are not a part of the Disney Princess Court because they are part of their own brand. For instance, Frozen. Frozen is its own brand. So Anna and Elsa, as much as they are considered Disney princesses, queens, spirits of some kind, they are not in the official Disney Princess brand because they're part of the Frozen brand. So they're not in the Disney Princess Court. Similarly, Moana is part of her own brand. She is not in the Disney Princess Court either. I know some people are going to fight me on this. That's fine. Maybe I'll do a video about them eventually, but I'm not going to talk about them today. With all those things in mind, I will be talking about Mulan and Pocahontas in this video because despite what everyone might think, they are a part of the official Disney Princess brand. So I'm sorry, again, if people are going to fight me on this, that's totally okay. But I'm just saying I'm going to talk about them because they are part of the brand. So let's talk about the very first Disney princess in the Disney Princess lineup, Snow White. Now, I know most people have a lot of qualms with Snow White. And also, most people don't know that she's the first princess. A lot of people think it's Cinderella. And a lot of people have qualms because there are so many people who don't like her voice, who think that the movie wasn't great or that it's kind of scary. And you have some interesting points. Again, she met this guy one time and then she wakes up and he kissed her and you're like, no, I don't know you. But I also have to say that the 14th century was a very different time. Not saying it's okay, but it was a very different time. But moving past that, we're going to talk about Snow White herself. I remember talking about this in the actual Snow White video that I did, and I was just blown away because I don't think I had actually watched the movie all the way through until I decided to do this. But I still knew a lot about her, and I still would advocate for her because I was like, she's so kind and pure. I just think there's more in being a good role model than having magic powers or saving China, And I'm not saying those are bad things because I love Mulan and Elsa is also great. But in this instance, there is more to being a great human being and being a good role model. And Snow White is a perfect example. I think that she is super kind and really brave. I mean, in her movie, she literally has someone try to kill her, and he doesn't. He lets her run away and lets her escape. And as I remember very specifically being so blown away by this scene when she's running through the forest and she's really scared and she just collapses and cries. And of course, from the one hand, you're like, oh, she's such a crybaby, blah, 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 blah. I was like, yeah, but she's like 14 and she just had somebody try to kill her and she's running through a really scary forest. She doesn't know where she is. The only person she knows, like her family, had to try to get her killed. I think that's really scary. That's a perfectly reasonable excuse to cry, okay? But what makes Snow White amazing is in that same scene is once she stops crying and she looks up, she does the song A Smile and a Song, and she talks about how she's being so silly and that everything will be okay with a smile and a song. And I just think that that is one of the most difficult things to tell yourself and to even just do. When you've gone through a traumatic experience and you can cry about it and then you can stand up and being like, I'm being silly, it's gonna be okay, and then keep going. I mean, come on, not even like people in their 30s can do that. So I'm just saying that's amazing and she should get mad props for that. She looks for the positive in everything. She learns to be brave in the face of adversity. And sometimes bad things in life have to happen in order for good things to happen. I'm not saying everyone should go around getting poisoned by apples, but if she did not go through that ordeal, then she wouldn't have gotten her happy ending at the end. And again, I know that there's a lot of things you could say about the happy endings, and that's not that simple. You're right, it's not that simple. But I still think the lesson is important that sometimes bad things in life have to happen in order for good things to happen. I mean, just take Inside Out, for example. I will say that one of the most amazing things I have ever heard is somebody talking to Sadness at Walt Disney World about how she had recently lost her mother from cancer and she was really, really upset about it. And she watched Inside Out and she wanted to come and say thank you to Sadness because Sadness taught her that sometimes you have to be sad in order to be happy. And I think we can equate that to that lesson here. Sometimes bad things have to happen in order for good things to happen. Not all good things are just going to come your way. Life is full of bad things. Second princess, Cinderella. This is the princess that everyone thinks about. The classic, typical rags to riches story, the damsel in distress, blah, blah, blah. We're going to set that aside for now, okay? Cinderella is another character that is pretty positive about a lot of situations. And when I did go back and rewatch this, she has so much sass and it is fabulous. And yes, she did have that part where she was crying her eyes out. But, you know, everybody has those points in their life where they lose hope and everything seems down and dreary and you have to cry it out. I know not everybody can be that way, but I definitely have moments where I just need to cry. And then you feel better after your cry. And the dress meant a lot to her and they ruined it. But then in also that moment, the fairy godmother shows up and lends her a helping hand. And what I love about Cinderella, I feel like what this movie is teaching us in this moment, in that exact moment, is that sometimes it is okay to accept help. I mean, Cinderella has been by herself living at the whim of her stepmother and stepsisters for like her entire life. And then somebody actually reaches out a hand and offers to help her. And yes, it was to go to a ball, fine, whatever, but she just wanted to go out and have a good time. She never said she wanted to meet a prince and get married. She never said that. That was not her intention. She just wanted to go to the ball. I mean, I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in the last video that I did about this, but I'm going to read this from the song, this quote. And I think this is just the whole attitude of Cinderella's character, the whole theme of this movie, and why I think it's great and that we should take away this from this movie. It says, no matter how your heart is grieving, if you keep on believing, a dream that you wish will come true. I mean, that whole scene where she's crying, her heart is grieving. She's literally like just kind of given up and just had this moment where she just can't take it anymore. Then a dream that you wish will come true. And she dreamed about going to the ball, not meeting a prince, going to the ball. And somebody reached out a hand and helped her go to the ball. I don't see what the problem is here. The third princess, Princess Aurora, also known as Sleeping Beauty, also known as Briar Rose. She has so many names. Now, I know a lot could be said about Princess Aurora because I think she has like 17 lines in the whole movie. Fine, whatever, I get it. Again, another sleeping princess, she gets wakened by a kiss. Fine. But on that note, let's just point out that Prince Philip never would have succeeded without the good fairy's help. But let's talk about the parts where we do see Sleeping Beauty, where we do see Aurora, and what she really has for us to look up to. She spends her whole life thinking she is one person. Then one day she finds out she's another person. And yes, we could talk about a lot, like they met each other for 2.5 seconds and then they were in love. Fine. I know that doesn't really happen, but again, different time. What's important in this moment is that she does go up to her room and cries. And again, a lot of people are like, she cries, what a crybaby, blah, 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 blah. Sometimes you just have to cry it out when you're upset. I cannot stress this enough. I know very few people, like there are a lot of people in this world that don't cry a lot. That's totally fine. But there are plenty of people who, when they're upset, they cry. I don't see what the problem is. And you tell me one 16-year-old whose parents are like, no, you can't date him or do this, that, or the other, and they don't get upset about it. It may be a different time, but I think 16-year-olds have stayed pretty par for the course. But let's go back to the important part, because she goes up to her room, she cries it out, and then she does it anyway. And what I mean by that is that the good fairies told her that she has to go back to the kingdom to become the princess and then marry whoever it is that she's supposed to marry. She doesn't want to do any of that, but she does it out of a sense of duty. It is not just for her. It's not about her happiness. It's about the good of the kingdom. How many people do you know that would sacrifice things like that for other people? This moment in the movie, if you guys ever go back and watch it, there's that part where she's walking back to she's in the castle with the good fairies. They're sneaking in. It's her 16th birthday or whatever. And, she has the hood on. And the way she's like holding herself, her head is high. She's just perfectly composed face. And she doesn't cry until she gets back into her room. I just think that it takes a really strong person to hold it together and not break down until you're by yourself. Now, granted, you should never hold in your emotions. That's a whole other different conversation. But in this case, she's holding in her sadness because it's for the good of other people. It's for the good of the kingdom. So the lesson I want us to take away from Aurora is that she is doing what is right for other people and not for herself, like selflessness. And yes, she wasn't in the movie very, for a long period of time, but she still had plenty to say in the time that she was in the movie, doing things. Next, let's talk about Ariel, also known as the Little Mermaid. Now, the most shining feature about Ariel is that she has an unfathomable curiosity for things. Yes, we could talk about the fact that she's like, I'm 16, I'm not a child. And again, she fell in love with some guy she had never met and then changed everything about herself, whatever, to be with this person. Fine, whatever. Let's put that aside for now. Okay, that's a separate conversation. But let's also talk about the fact that she had an obsession with humans before she saw Eric. And yes, she changed into a human to meet him, but she was still obsessed with human things. And I think despite the fact that she met Eric, or not met him, but at least saw him, that she probably would have jumped at the chance to be a human for a little while because she has such an obsession with human things. I mean, let's think about the line I have to read it. It says, bright young women, sick of swimming, ready to stand. I mean, come on. It's not just about Eric. She feels that she is a bright young woman who has a very good, curiosity for things, and she wants to stand up and learn about them. Yes, a good chunk of the movie and the catalyst for the whole human thing was meeting Eric and getting him to kiss her. Fine, whatever. And I think that curiosity is a great thing that we should all have. Okay, let's talk about Belle. Belle, also known as the Beauty in the Beauty and the Beast combo. I think there are a lot of obvious reasons why people can look up to Belle. I mean, she loves reading. Her father is a scientist. She is known in the movie for being different and weird, and there's the whole beauty within and all that. There's so many lessons in Beauty and the Beast. There's so many things you can take away that I don't understand why people give her such a bad rep. I guess I get it because, there's the whole being in a kidnap situation. That's a whole other conversation that we could talk about because I don't think it qualifies as Stockholm Syndrome, but again, different conversation. What I do think we can take away from Belle and the Beauty and the Beast story is being true to yourself. She literally is surrounded by a town of people that think she is weird and odd and don't understand her. Oh, but she's beautiful. Who cares? Beauty, again, is more than just what's on the outside. It's also about what's on the inside. But there's more to it than that. She's still herself. She doesn't care that everybody thinks she's weird because she likes to read and has thoughts and ideas. What a concept. Again, different time. But she stays true to her passions, and even when she does technically give them up to set her father free, again, it's that selflessness, that sacrifice that she makes for the good of her father, but even still, she still loves to read. She still has curiosity. I don't see what the problem is. Now let's talk about Jasmine. Jasmine, who is from the movie Aladdin, so even though she's not the actual protagonist, she plays a huge role in the movie. I mean, she's literally the object of Aladdin's affection, and he tries to win her over, though unsuccessfully at first. In general, I think what's great about this movie is that it's a classic, like, rags to riches in a sense. It's not quite like Cinderella, rags to riches, because it's reverse. I feel like that's not always really common. You don't always see a princess with a guy. It's always like the other way. It's always the girl that needs to be saved and whatever. The girl that is poor and needs the help of some rich guy, whatever. No, not in this case. I mean, there's so many different things I could say about Jasmine in general, but I think we can all recall the line, not a prize to be won. Plus, she wants to marry for love. I don't see why that's such a bad thing. Like, she wants to listen to her heart, and her heart is telling her all these weirdos that are coming from other kingdoms trying to beg for her affection are not it. And then she sneaks out of the castle and has a real life connection with somebody. Sometimes you just have to go out the world and meet people. Now, we're going to talk about our two controversial princesses. Now, with Pocahontas, I know there's a lot of things, especially because we all know it is not in the least bit historically accurate. I totally get that. There are so many things wrong with it. But if we look at it from just the Disney movie perspective and not a historical perspective, there are a lot of great things about Pocahontas. I mean, she is brave, not afraid to stand up for what she believes in, and all she really wants is peace. There are so many arguments in life, so many disagreements, so many wars and battles, and that is just a part of our history. The humans will never stop fighting because they can't ever agree on a base level. I get that. I understand that. What I think is great about Pocahontas is that she yearns for peace, and she thinks that it can be done in a not harmful way. And I know that that's not possible. I know there's going to be people out there like, well, that's just not how that works. I know it's not how that works. I get it. But she believes in peace. And that's what I think we can take away from this. I think Pocahontas is great because she follows her heart, or a compass, and she wants peace.
She also teaches us to look outside ourselves at other peoples and cultures. Just because you think you have all the answers doesn't mean you do. There's always something to be learned.
Now let's talk about Mulan. Now I know some of you, again, are going to argue about the whole princess thing. We're going to set that argument aside because, again, both Pocahontas and Mulan are technically part of the Disney princess brand. So, now for obvious reasons, Mulan is amazing because she literally becomes a soldier and is the reason that China gets saved. I know that's not the real story. It's not historically accurate, just like Pocahontas is not historically accurate, but in the parameters of the Disney movie, and if we're just going to look at the movie, she saves China. What's great about Mulan is that she does it for her father. She does it for her family. It's very family oriented, and that's what Disney is all about. It's about family. There have been so many movies coming out recently about family, and Mulan is not really any different. She does this for her family. And I know there's the whole honor aspect. You have to bring honor to your family. There are multiple ways you can bring honor to your family. And I think that's what's really important to talk about here. Because like at the end of the movie, when she tells her father all her accomplishments, like I saved China and here's this sword and here's this crest, all he really cares about is that she's okay. And that she has brought honor to the family even without all of those accomplishments. And so it just really showcases the importance of family and how much, even if it may not seem like that, even if you disagree with your family sometimes, that there are those bonds. And I just really, really appreciate that about this movie. I mean, it's really just like about what honor really is. I mean, she could have stayed in the capital. She could have stayed and, just basked in the glory, but she doesn't because she's like, no, I need to go home and be with my family. And I think that is beautiful. Plus, one of the best quotes ever, the flower that blooms in adversity is the most rare and beautiful of all. I love that quote so much. It is one of my favorite lines in Disney history, other than all the great things that Mushu is and does. Besides that, I love that quote so much because it is true, not just in the Disney fantasy realm, but also in real life as well. So now we're going to get to my two favorite princesses of all time. We're going to talk about Tiana and we're going to talk about Rapunzel. First of all, other than the fact that somehow Tiana has gone so unrecognized, her movie is amazing. The music is great. The characters are great. I don't know the storyline. It's like, it's so good. I don't understand why people don't like it. I mean, there is the whole voodoo aspect. I get that. Some people think it's too scary or too creepy. But then I think back, I'm like, but Snow White is okay? That movie was kind of creepy. One of the reasons I love Tiana so much, again, it goes, both Rapunzel and Tiana talk about dreams, and it goes back to like the theme that I feel like Cinderella kind of started with dreaming and dreams coming true. On the surface, Princess and the Frog, Tiana's movie, is about a hardworking girl who has these setbacks, not just with the lenders, but, you know, getting turned into a frog and having a whole bayou adventure. Despite all of those things, she still gets her dream in the end. But what I think is really important in this movie is the Dig a Little Deeper song, because this is like honestly one of the most important lessons I think we should take away from just life in general, is that it focuses on, or it tries to help you understand the difference between what you want and what you need. I mean, we all want so many things in this world. I know I would like so many things in this world, but what I want is very different from what I need. And what is great about this movie is that sometimes, like, it shows us that sometimes if you focus on the things that you need, the things that you want will come with it. And I mean, technically this is a life lesson that Mama Odie is trying to tell her to teach us, but we experience it with Tiana as she learns that lesson. And I think that's just so amazing and magical. Now let's switch over to Rapunzel, because Rapunzel is also about dreams and also has one of my favorite lessons that I think that we should all take away from a Disney princess movie. And this is, I think, something that I learned, I feel like at the same, because Rapunzel was actually, I think, my first favorite Disney princess. I had never liked, I remember going to see it in theaters, and I had never had like a favorite Disney princess growing up. I loved Disney, but I wasn't like super into Disney. And then when I finally started getting more into Disney and I started rewatching stuff and really getting into it, that's when my love of Tiana grew as well, because I realized that she had something just as important to say as the Tangled movie. And here it is, because most people live their life like their dream is going to come to them, that it's just going to happen. And I think Rapunzel teaches us that sometimes, not even sometimes, all the time, you shouldn't wait for your dream to come to you. You have to go out there and get it. It's not going to come to you if you just sit in your tower. You have to go and get what you want. And you have to do it despite your fears and doubts. Yeah, she's afraid of the outside world. And there's, she's never felt grass before. That whole song scene was fabulous. But like, she has a lot of doubts. She's literally looking out the window like, I don't know about this. And also Mother will be mad, even though again, she's not her real mother, but we're not going to talk about that right now. I think that in life, we have so many doubts and fears about making that leap, literally jumping out a window, jumping out of your tower. But your dreams are not going to come to you unless you go and actively try to get them. And that's such an important life lesson that I don't think a lot of us realize, and that I personally definitely spent a lot of my time just thinking, oh, it'll happen. I got to focus on this. I got to focus on that. But why? If I don't focus on the things that I truly want, then they're never going to happen. So go out there and get it. I know that's easier said than done, and I get that. But we're going to move on. We're going to talk about Merida, who is the last princess in our Princess Power video. There's a lot we could say about Merida, because she's like the first Disney princess that's actually Pixar, but she is counted in the Disney princess brand, so we're going to talk about her. I mean, let's think about the quote, I fight for my own hand, or I'll compete for my own hand, something about her own hand. And I think it was the first of the Disney princess movies, or Pixar princess, squishing it together a little, that focused not on like the romantic aspect, but focused on like a different type of relationship, which in this movie was the mother-daughter relationship. Even with all that, I don't think that's the thing we should be taking away from Merida's movie. It's not necessarily the mother-daughter relationship. It's the fact that she has to learn from her mistakes. And she has to own up to her mistakes, and then she works the entire movie to try to fix it, to make it right. And I think that's what we should be taking away. There's so many things we could take away from all of these princesses, and there's so many different things we could take away from Merida's movie, but that's something that the thing that stuck with me the most in her movie is that she wants her mother to get off her back, but then realizes that she made a mistake, and she spends the entire movie trying to make it right. And I think that's a really important life lesson that we can learn from her. sometimes people let things be as they are. They're like, well, I made this mistake and there's nothing I can do about it now. I'm sure there are many mistakes in life that we can't go back on, but if there's a way to fix it, then maybe we should try. And I know that goes out to, if you could change your fate, would you? I'm not fully trying to do any type of accent because I'm bad at those, but I think, again, that's what we should be taking away from Merida here. Let us recap. From Snow White, we can learn kindness and that everything is going to be okay in the end, even when it's really hard in the moment. From Cinderella, we learn about dreaming and about being brave and that sometimes it's okay to accept a helping hand. From Aurora, we learn again about bravery, but also doing what's right for others and not just for ourselves. From Ariel, we learn about curiosity. From Belle, we learn about being yourself, being weird, and that beauty is not just on the outside, it's on the inside as well. From Jasmine, we learn to stand up for ourselves and following our heart. From Pocahontas, we also learn a little bit more about following your heart and about peace, and it's okay to want peace, even if it is not fathomable or possible. From Mulan, we learn about family and how important family is, and bringing honor to our family isn't always what it seems. There's more to it than just what it seems on the surface. From Tiana, we learn the difference between what you want and what you need, and sometimes what you need will help lead you to what you want. From Rapunzel, we learn to not just let our dreams come to us, but to go actively chase our dreams despite our fears. And from Merida, we learn to acknowledge our mistakes and work to fix them if we can. And maybe also knowing when we're wrong. So that is my rant on Disney princesses. Again, I know that there are a lot of controversies about some of these girls, about the damsels in distress and the different stories and how unrealistic they can be. But I really wanted to showcase the great things that we can learn from them, that they are great role models and that each one has different things that they can teach us about being a good, decent human being, and not even just that, just about life. I mean, going to chase your dreams, all those things. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you have anything else that you love about any one of these and I didn't highlight it or didn't talk about it, and maybe I didn't notice, or things that you like about them, please feel free to leave those in the comments below. I would love to hear other people's thoughts. So thank you all for watching my rant, and until next time, bye!